But before this video begins, I would like to clarify that these stories are not the usual ones where your life is in immediate danger. They are real stories, they are true anecdotes, and they are memorable. All of them have teachable moments. I'd also like to add that each of these stories were narrated with the explicit permission of their respective authors. With that out of the way, let's begin. Question number 1. What did you see happen in the hospital waiting room? Story number 1. I took an employee with kidney stones to the ER one time. While sitting in the waiting room, a guy came with chest pains. He was taken back for immediate treatment, and then came the rest of his crew. He had been at a potluck picnic when it happened, and they brought the whole dang thing to the hospital. Oh my, like 40 people with casserole dishes and meat trays and such. The only disappointing thing was that they didn't invite me to eat. Story number 2. It's really tame compared to all your stories, but I was in the emergency waiting room with my mom. I was the one with an emergency and I was drowsy the whole time. But I remember that at some point a man was wheeled into the room while making throat noises. Think The Grudge. And my mom took my face in her hands and told me very calmly, without an inch of panic in her voice, to look through the window and tell her what that weird tree was, because she had never seen one like that. She definitely had. I had no idea what was going on, so I kept staring at that tree. And then it was my turn, so we left the waiting room. Days later, she told me that the man who was wheeled into the room had one of his legs hanging for dear life, and that there was blood everywhere in his pants, but also his clothes. He was drunk, so he probably had a fight. I hope he's okay now. And my mom is the best. She was worried and didn't want me to see this, so she took in the sight, but protected me from it. Sometimes I think we don't deserve moms. Story number 3. A doctor going from patient to patient asking them health questions, symptoms, and so on. She did this for an hour until there was a code-wide announcement. 2 people and 2 security guards surrounded her and hauled her off. She was not a doctor after all. Story number 4. My paternal grandmother had an affair with our small town's mortician in the late 1940s. She got pregnant and he performed an illegal abortion. The fetus was buried behind the funeral home he owned, where we kids used to play sled every winter. My dad told me this as I was getting ready to take a ride down the hill on the sled when I was 12. Also, my paternal grandfather had multiple illegitimate children around our small town. Turns out one of my best friends was also my half-cousin. Father told me when I was 17. My father was educated, intelligent, honest, and moral, and the fact that his parents were so wild was absolutely shocking to me. Story number 5. My parents told me this one night during dinner, and I thought I would share this here. Call me S. My name and gender aren't important here. What's important here is the fact that this particular anecdote of my parents is just too intense, too interesting, and too intriguing not to be related and shared anywhere. So I thought I would write it here so as to preserve it, because I liked it so much, because it could hopefully entertain others, and because I like most stories found stored and written in Reddit. They do have some certain degree of truth and accuracy to them, meaning they do have some teachable moments. As I said in the title, as if it could be called or considered all that, for I do not consider myself good at writing or telling stories. My parents told us this story. It happened in the year 1990, and my older sibling confirmed this, in a manner of speaking. This encounter or meeting, whatever it was just something else, because when you read about them here, you can only imagine what it's like to having it happen to you, such as a murder attempt, creepy encounters, or kidnappings. So yeah, back to my parents and their story. They have told this particular thing to me numerous times throughout my life, and the two of them and my sibling can confirm this. Reliving this memory frightens them to no end, and telling it does too. Few people have been told this particular experience. Picture this. It's the year 1990, and it's summer. You're attending an Aerosmith concert, and it's rather crowded. It's in some Midwest state of the US, of course, that for personal reasons I'm not naming here. So yeah, we all attended an Aerosmith concert. By we, I mean my mom, my dad, and my sibling. They were all 54, 57, and 19 all. I remember this well, but I am now unable to recall what age I had back then. After this concert, the three of them were walking to this parking lot in a huge crowd of people. Agoraphobics, beware! Mom and Dad were walking on one side of the pavement, sidewalk or footpath, whatever you may call it. They were about to step off the curve when they saw two hooded figures across the street. The moment their feet hit the pavement, the figures were directly in front of them, like statues. It was as if they teleported in the blink of an eye. They appeared to be floating, they appeared to have no feet, and they appeared to have moved from one side of the street to the other in an intriguing instant. The next thing my parents know, it's that they are standing alone, not in the exact same place that they were, with their arms outstretched from the elbow palms facing up, and their hands and forearms are tingling. They made their way back to the car and no one else was around. The parking lot was empty except for their car. My brother was sitting on the bumper waiting for them and said he had been waiting for them for about 2 hours. My parents have no recollection of what happened during that 2-hour period. My brother says that he was walking and he turned around and they were gone, and he just went back to the car and waited. 2 weeks after this incident, my mom finds out that she was pregnant with me. They believe this may have been the reason they were approached. I personally have never experienced anything unexplainable like this, but I do believe their story. I have never known them to make things up, and they are not psychotic. They believe this encounter was some kind of extraterrestrial being. I believe their experience was genuine, but I'm not certain that aliens are the explanation, but I am also not ruling it out. When things like this happen, one must take them with a grain of salt and be open to the most logical and the craziest explanation. Things like this could be popularly called glitches in the Matrix, or so I've heard. In case you, dear reader or dear viewer, have a different name for this type of occurrences, feel free to write it down in the comments. This happened in a post-concert crowd with hundreds of people around. As I had said a few paragraphs ago, agoraphobics and introverts, beware. Has anyone had a similar experience or any insight on what could have happened to them? As for those of you saying they were dosed or under the influence of anything, I do agree that this is a strong possibility and a total likelihood. Nevertheless, my knowledge of what substances can distort the perception of reality in a way that could match what my parents describe is rather limited. I'm not aware of any substance, legal or illegal, that can cause this. there is this Reddit thread called Psychonauts, and I've shared my parents' anecdote there so as to find out whether any input can be had or not. Should there be any traction, you will be the first ones to know. Furthermore, some have been asking if I have had a DNA test. To tell you the truth, I did take one of those ancestry tests, and there wasn't anything out of the ordinary or unusual in the results. I have also had MRIs before, and I have normal human anatomy. I do not think my mom got pregnant during this incident. She was already pregnant and didn't know it yet. Story number 6. The following story will be a rather gross and revolting one. Therefore, viewer discretion is very much advised. Thus, do I wash my hands from any distress my story or my wording thereof might cause. If the viewer or reader finds himself or herself eating, he or she might as well finish the food and come back, or simply watch something else. I told this story to some of my friends at a McDonald's, 30 minutes away from our usual hangout spot, and they threw up. Many gross things have been done by my hands. What I'm about to tell you isn't really the worst. However, it is pretty bad. This is your last chance to scroll down, run away, or watch something else. So I worked in this animal shelter. You know, cats, dogs, and a few extra animals like rodents and birds, but cats and dogs were the main animals. Part of my job was sending in animals to have to be checked for rabies. That virus is the source of nightmares, honestly. A rabid, furious animal is the least of your concerns once you have seen the worst symptoms of rabies in cats, dogs, and other animals. You only send the head. Yep, you did read that right. The state prefers that you also wash the head. The state prefers that you also wash the head. And if you're feeling really generous, you douse it with flea and tick spray. So anyway, this uppity rich kid decides to start feeding the raccoons that are hanging out by a spool. Yeah, if you know what feral fauna like cats, rabbits, foxes, cows, and camels do in Australia, you can probably kind of imagine where this is going. This eventually leads to him trying to cuddle with one of them, which then leads to him being bitten. Things like this make me think that perhaps natural selection is not a bad thing, and the survival of the fittest should be changed for survival of the smartest, which many humans living now, and this aforementioned biting victim, aren't. After the incident, I believe he kicked it into the pool and then somehow got it out and bashed it to death. Note, I do not like this guy, and I have zero sympathy for him. I bet this man, or whatever year old, must have the most twisted perception of raccoons, and Rocket Raccoon and Groot don't help. After he murders the raccoon, who would not reciprocate his love, he throws it away. Then his bite gets infected, and the medic checking his wound tells him that if the raccoon can be tested, then he'll have to have the shots. The deceased raccoon has been sitting in a garbage bag for 5 days in over 100-degree temperature. By the way, for the non-Americans watching, that's 37.7 degrees Celsius. I don't think this carcass can be analyzed accurately by any chemist or lab worker. So we dig the raccoon out, that is at the bottom of a trash bag filled with rotted food and house trash. It's pretty much decomposed. But God, the stench! Working in an animal shelter or in a zoo pretty much desensitizes you to some extent. Anything that smells awful. So making a top 5 is tough. And the maggots! My skin crawls both at the mere thought of it, and the soul side of one in a video causes me an uncontrollable itch. We take it back to the shelter and decide that we better remove the dead animal's head outside, so we aren't trapped inside with him and his little friends, the maggots and the worms. My partner and I are taking turns dry heaving and holding the water hose. It's not the same as handling a snake. We were trying to wash off as many maggots as possible. We could tell that the raccoon wasn't going to be testable. I could see what was left of its brain through its eye sockets, but we are required to at least send it. Stupid moron. You know, that guy. My partner is like, no way, I'm not doing this. And I finally cave. We decided via rock, paper, scissors, and I lost. Fuck. I tell her to just keep rinsing off the maggots, and I remove the head. So I hold my breath. She stops the rinsing. I take my scalpel and run up to it and make a few cuts. Then run away. Dry heave, and she resumes rinsing. The skin is also literally washing away as she rinses, just falling off. We repeat this about 10 minutes until it's done. These 10 minutes, of course, were a torture. She looks at me and tells me I have the biggest balls ever. I look at her like, I'm pretty sure you're aware that I'm a woman, but thanks for the compliment, I guess. Maybe you meant to say my ovaries are bigger than Rambo's mom. The raccoon was not able to be tested and he had to get the shots. I hope they hurt. I hope he got a nasty scar, and I hope he learned a lesson out of his massive cruelty and stupidity. Alas, I'm betting on the contrary, because fools are usually filled with confidence, while us smart ones are filled with questions. I could still smell that dead raccoon. And I'm also glad that idiot received the shots. For that guy, messing with that raccoon would cause him one of the most painful moments in his life. But for you and me, for us reading it here, would cause something stupid to laugh at.